Artificial intelligence is remaking marketing as we speak. And if you're a marketer, you can either get up to speed or get left behind. The choice is yours, and really it's a no-brainer. Join Geoff Livingston and Greg Verdino as they explore the latest AI news, trends, tools, and ideas that are creating the future of marketing today. This is No Brainer, an AI podcast for marketers. Take it away, Geoff and Greg.
Hey, this is Greg, and he is Geoff, and this is No Brainer, the AI podcast for business. Welcome back to another episode. We're excited about this one as the summer is winding down. Unfortunately, Geoff, you got to switch to winter white. It's going to be Labor Day soon enough.
Oh my Lord, Greg, how did the time fly? I mean, I guess this is going to be posted a couple of weeks after Labor Day, right?
That's right. We are recording this on August 27th, which is important to know since AI advances so quickly. But yeah, as people are listening to this, it will be after Labor Day. There will be winter white, winter coats, getting ready for the fall. I hope it'll be maybe less than 90 degrees one of these days, right?
Most definitely. And, all those hurricanes, let's hope we don't have one between now and then as well, because they've been non-existent this summer almost.
Well, not quite.
Almost.
Maybe not in Washington, D.C.
That's all right. I'm sorry, buddy.
So we, as always, we are here with a great guest. Geoff, in a minute, I'm going to let you introduce that guest. But first, for everybody, as always, please be sure to subscribe if you like what you hear or see. Leave us comments, ratings, reviews, all that kind of good stuff. Be sure to share on social, help get the word out. And we will continue to do our best to bring you good, smart people like the person who has joined us today. Who do we have, Geoff?
Well, we're welcoming Stephanie Pereira, who is the CMO of Astral AI. Astral is an interesting LLM-based service that really targets, or serves, I should say, small businesses and influencers and really scaling their content and helping their customers and constituencies really engage with them. And with that, Stephanie, hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you? So happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. Tell us a little more about what Astral is before we dive into our content extravaganza here.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it. We're a startup. We've been around about a year, so we're always evolving who we are and who we're building for. But as of today, we make it possible for anyone to productize your content library. So if you're a podcaster like yourselves, you can sync your podcast with our product and instantly transform it into transcripts, show notes, blog posts, newsletters. I did an ebook for someone yesterday. They sent me a transcript of, actually they sent me the episode, and I turned it into an ebook and blew their socks off. So it's been a fun product to build because we're doing a lot of knocking people's socks off with it every day.
Now that's pretty cool. That's got to be exciting when you get that response. And
yeah.
We thought you'd be great to talk about the content landscape because we see a lot of dialogue and we're obviously in business, so we're experiencing how AI is shifting our own approaches to content as well as always talking about AI and helping other people use AI. So this is definitely a very good prescient topic and we expect our listeners will love it. So first, let me kick it off and kind of softball both of you on this one. Let's talk about exponential increases in content. I think we went through this with the content marketing boom. Real or perceived, AI is making it a lot easier for people to scale, right? Like it's easy to version now when it didn't used to be. And some of this versioning is existing content. Some people are creating completely new computer-generated content or computer-assisted content. How's this new AI-inspired content boom changing the larger internet ecosystem? And is it good or bad or kind of like a mixed bag? I mean, I don't know.
Should I go first or Greg? Or
Guess first.
You're the smart one.
All right. Oh, thank you. I think we're all pretty smart. So, I mean, this is the thing we grapple with every day, right? There's I think the general understanding is garbage in, garbage out. If you just go to ChatGPT and say, write me a blog post on AI and content marketing, you're going to get probably a bunch of garbage. You could publish it. Is it going to be high value for you? Is it going to do anything transformative for your business? Probably not. It's not going to bring that SEO value you're looking for. It's not going to speak to your niche. It's not going to do all the things you need good marketing content to do. So the thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about is how do you continue to basically funnel all the insights in, all the things about your audience, what they're looking for, what they care about, and then of course your moat, what makes you unique, and put that into some sort of product. And what we've seen is generally you need to start with your own words. The cool thing is those words could be a conversation very much like this. It could be you hopping on the phone with a coworker, a co-founder, or a customer. A lot of times we're looking at customer conversations and then running that through an AI content generator. But then, of course, you need to figure out how to prompt it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Your point about garbage in, garbage out obviously is 100% spot on. I think part of the challenge sometimes is, especially when you believe the early rhetoric around generative AI, I think it became sort of even decent in became garbage out. So much of the narrative was built around exponentially increase the amount of content you can produce, as if what the world wanted more is more, rather, when what the world really needs is better. Everything you're saying leads me to this sort of thought, and I've had this thought before, that when it becomes easier than ever to execute against a content plan, let's say, it becomes more important than ever to really nail the fundamentals of marketing strategy and content strategy. Really understanding your audience, what your audience's needs are, understanding their customer journey, which is something Geoff and I talk about a lot, having a distinct voice and tone, having a distinct value proposition, having, you called it, I think, a mode. I know Joe Pulizzi has called it a tilt, something that makes your content specifically you, right? And I think it's more important than ever that whether you're a personal brand of one or a Fortune 50 brand, that you've put the work in to do those fundamental things before you start thinking about how do I take an asset and repurpose, reuse it, reshape it, redistribute it. Because I think if you haven't done that stuff, I think no matter what you do, you end up with garbage out, right?
Yeah, I think the incredible thing is if you are leveraging AI workflows as part of your day-to-day, you are freeing yourself up to do that deep content strategy work, to understand your audience, to make sense of that information, turn it into a real strategy, which is the thing I'm most excited about, is how much more free time we have to do that incredible big picture thinking now.
Do you think, I'm wondering, because you say that, I agree. I mean, this is going to sound crass in a way, or dismissive, or negative, but hey, that's my thing. I'm a cranky old man.
No, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn.
I wonder to what extent the person who is kind of typically used to being just like a tactical content producer has the capacity and capability to do those things even with the time, right? Do they have that skill set? I wonder, what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, so two things. This is it's a great question. I think, will AI take my job? We're seeing it in customer support already. These chatbots can 100% effectively replace and even improve on the return that like a regular customer support agency can deliver. And so what the big companies like Intercom are doing are encouraging people to train up their low-level staff. They're creating new roles and new opportunities. And I think that's super important. The other thing, I have a friend who's a fractional CMO who I've talked to a ton about this. And he says the lower level people are hungry for this. They're sort of constantly put into the machine where they're like, generate content, and they would love the opportunity to step out and step back and be a little more strategic and less tactical in what they're doing.
So I think one thing, though, to consider with this, I don't know how you feel about it, is how everybody's consuming this AI-generated content. And that includes everything from the human person, the customer, if you would. I think people are turning off to it a bit. And I also think the way search engines are consuming content is changing as well. And I do think that changes the larger dynamic. And let me expand on that before I kick back. One aspect of that is the consumption of it by people. And we're seeing this with the election cycle in particular, that there's so much fake news coming out right now and fake content. They say 1 in every 10 political posts right now is AI generated and not real and not factually correct, which is people, right? But people using these engines for kind of bad maybe is the way to look at that, and that's reducing trust. And I wonder what the larger impact to people and brands are going to be when their content is less well regarded when it's detected or suspected of being an AI generated content engine. And then there's the whole, God, I don't even know what to say about Google and the way that they're summarizing content now. I mean, to me, it's kind of like the worst version of AI generated content possible is theirs right now, the way that they're regurgitating everybody else's content as a search result. I know it's going to get better. We all know it's going to get better. However, will the damage be done before we get to that point where it is better?
Yeah, I don't think the damage will be done. I think people's memories are short. Their whole launch of that product was an absolute flop. They took it away for like 5 seconds and brought it right back, and no one's talking about it anymore. I do think, though, at the sort of the human to human level, trust is essential. And if you're trying to send powerful messages or impactful messages and you're doing it with AI generated content, if you do break that trust, you're gonna have a hard time rebuilding it. I actually have started to talk to people about this. Traditionally in the Gen AI conversation, you hear human in the loop, right? How important it is to have a human to come in and fact check or whatever. I have been encouraging people to flip that and to think instead as AI in the loop. So still human-led, still community-led, still people and trust-led, but how can the AI enhance or boost your efforts? So maybe the AI is drafting and then you're finishing is a common way you think of it, but it could be the other way around, which we see on LinkedIn, right? You draft and then the AI like helps you sort of like optimize based on their algorithm.
I love that. One of my favorite things to do is take a piece of content and throw it in Claude and say, where are the weaknesses?
Yes. Yeah. Check this for me.
Yeah.
Where did I mess up?
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned LinkedIn, right, which is that sort of I write and LinkedIn, quote unquote, perfects. But my experience in that particular use case has always been that LinkedIn AI makes my post infinitely worse.
It flattens everything.
It flattens everything out. If I tag Geoff, it removes the tag to Geoff. It makes it name a hashtag at the end. It makes it generic. You can see a LinkedIn AI post coming from a mile away, right?
Yeah.
And you just see it and you look at these people and you're like, you are destroying every bit of credibility you have by posting this AI generated pap to what is allegedly a social network. I wonder, what is it in the maybe the mindset as well as the process that needs to change for people to really understand how to strike that right balance between the human and the machine?
I mean, we're in such an early moment in all of this. 2023 is when everything really took off. A lot of these products just started to roll out in the past year. For me, I 100% tested the LinkedIn post generating thing. My assumption, and I think my assumption was correct, was that it was somehow juicing the post in favor of its algorithm. While the post didn't sound anything like me, it got like extreme engagement and the most hilarious comments. People were like, wow, congratulations. It was like the dumbest post. I was like, I'm traveling to New York next week. See everyone soon. And people were like applauding. So it's a hot mess of a moment for Gen AI. And I think we all need to just, as marketers and as business leaders, just need to lean into these experiments, understand them. Average everyday people are kind of just along for the ride while the rest of us figure it out and hopefully build better products.
Very cool. How do you see those social networks adapting to this different content? Because also I know Astral's got a host of influencers that it works with. And if you think about the Instagram and TikTok communities, and obviously AI's got a role in there, but some of that AI is much more visual than I think people also forget what social networks, and we know because we're marketers, but social networks were one of the first things to really adapt algorithmic programming, if you would.
Yes.
They're AI in their own right. And so you have AI on AI on AI going on here.
Yeah.
What's your take on the way these other social networks are adapting to computer-generated content?
In my mind, there's 3 big opportunities. One, it's nailing the tone and voice. So Greg, exactly what you were complaining about. If LinkedIn rewrites your post, it should rewrite it as you, not as the LinkedIn algorithm. Yep. 2 is being able to synthesize the data. So this is something we're working on with Astral, is big influencers, people with big followings, people with deeply engaged followings that write a bazillion comments on every post, how to synthesize that information and understand how, like, where to go with that as a business. That's hugely important. So it's not just you showing up, rocking up to your LinkedIn or whatever your social feed is and writing a post. It's that, hey, your audience has been asking about this, or they were really enthusiastic about this. This is where you can be leaning in right now. And based on what you've already been doing, here's an opportunity. And then the third piece, which is related to that, is personalization. So a lot of people in the AI space have said the web as we know it is not going to look the same 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now. And a big piece of that is I'm not going to go and open LinkedIn and just see a bunch of content. I'm going to see content that's personalized for me. That's if I'm even going, maybe my agent is going for me. So then that is a thing that we're building a lot right now too.
That's kind of a cool thought, right? The agent going to fetch the stuff for me. I don't know what to trust in
I
that.
don't know what
Agent,
that
go
is,
get it for me.
but-
Go get it for me, right?
I know, me either. I'm open to it though. I'm like, there's something in it, and can keep an eye on it. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I guess one thing I was going to say, because I was going to ask you about best practices and how that's working out, but with the personalization thing, how do you see personalization evolving? And why I ask is we've had a few discussions to this end over the summer on the podcast. And one thing that people keep latching onto is this single element of what we would call personalization. For example, I went to American undergrad. And so somebody might say to me, hey, I went to American too. Let me tell you about all this stuff. Or like they may use that in their engine and get that single point of personalization. And I, the consumer, reject that because I know you're totally transparent and fake. What are your thoughts on that?
The way that we have been coming at personalization is audience-led. I am not using, for our business right now, I'm not using any of those AI sales tools for exactly the reason you just said. It goes back to Greg's points about flattening. Me as a salesperson, I know that personalization is important, but I also know that if an AI generates a standard intro message, it's not going to work and it's going to break that trust we talked about earlier. So we are looking at more from me, Stephanie, I'm Googling like summer travel packing hacks and getting, as we know, like Google's already trying this with their results that they're producing. But when I go to then, let's say your website, what is the thing that I'm seeing on that site? Is it personally generated for me? Is it somehow recommending exactly the thing I'm looking for without having to read 6 of your blog posts to get to the answer?
I don't want to read 6 of my blog posts either. So I guess when you talk about brand integrity, and we've talked a lot about this, and when we've had conversations about these larger personalization frameworks and how like an Under Armour might implement it, and this is the luxury of being big, right? This is the luxury of being super big and having lots of resources at your disposal. You can create brand frameworks. You can create style guides to pre-program the AI and say, like, here are the 30 colors we're using, here are the different elements, and here's how to recognize what color this person wants this shoe or this shirt in, or whatever it might be, right? When you get to that, it's a really nice place to be. But most of us are never going to get there as marketers or humans or business owners or influencers or even just CTOs and CIOs trying to support that. Mm. So how do we make this still work given how wild things really are right now and how kind of cowboyish and people just flaring their guns out and going crazy? I don't feel like we're getting a ton of support from Silicon Valley algorithm providers in this sense. I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
So I know I'm not supposed to be pitchy,
Bring it.
But a key insight, so my background is in business. I've always worked in the creator economy. My career mission has been helping creative people do more of what they do, make a living doing what they love is a good tagline for it. I work at a tech startup. I'm not really a technical person. I check out a lot of websites. I go through their onboarding flows. I click around in their products. I see what does it look like. You know, I'm trying to steal the good ideas, but I'm also trying to understand what is their insights. What are they understanding about this space? And what I've consistently seen a lot of folks miss is they're like, okay, here's where you upload your style guide. Here's where you upload your colors. The assumption is that everyone is 1,000% buttoned up on this stuff, when as we know, it's just not the case. We're all doing our best. We're trying to be as professional and high leverage as we can be, but that's just not what it looks like inside a large company, honestly, but even a small company, for sure a small company. So the way that we've tried to build our product is, instead of asking you to define your tone and voice, we just look at your existing website. We look at your transcripts. We look at what you've done so far, and then we clone a tone and voice and a template based on that. And that way you're able to get content that looks and feels like you without you having to tell it what to do. So one thing I've talked a lot about to people is, how do you get the AI to just do the thing rather than telling it how to do the thing? I think we got to get rid of that tell it how to do the thing step.
So use that past content to really train the AI and your voice.
There's no reason it can't do it.
So I guess a question towards that end, and this is not my intent to pump up Astral, but is that kind of like a RAG implementation, the way you subset that tone and that voice training?
It's a RAG implementation, and specifically, and when GPTs was first coming out, people are like, oh, people are just going to do this for themselves. And the truth is they can, but will they? Especially when you have to create complex workflows, because there's one prompt that's like about tone and voice. There's another about looking at the content and putting together the right thing at the right time for the right person. There's another piece then fact checking that, right? And then there's another piece all about formatting and so on and so forth. So yes, it's a RAG implementation, but there's many layers to it.
Greg, any thoughts before
So you make the point, a good point, that there's a lot of sort of workflow that goes into making these things work, right? That there's almost in a lot of ways, the OpenAI narrative, for lack of a better term, has been, it's cheap, it's easy, it's free, just turn it on, anyone can do it, a monkey could do it, right? That's not what really happens. What we've seen, certainly time and time again, both when we've worked with marketing organizations and we've worked with larger organizations outside of marketing, is that it's not the technology that trips organizations up, it's always the human factors, whether that's a human in the loop or a human in charge, whether that's defining the workflows, whether that's thinking about how this fits into existing process and roles and responsibilities and job descriptions. Even some of the things you're talking about in terms of like the assumptions that a startup X might make, that your organization, or heavens forbid, you as a personal content creator, actually has brand guidelines.
Yes.
The number of times I've worked with Fortune 1000 companies that don't have documented verbal guidelines. They might have logos and colors, but they haven't documented brand voice. All of these things seem to make these programs fall apart. How challenging have you found it to, when you talk to individuals or organizations about the importance of all of these extra factors, do you tend to get nodding heads, or do you tend to get like, not really our problem, or not for us, or how are people responding to that? Because to me, it's fundamental.
It is fundamental. And a lot of the folks that I spend time talking to, the people that are interested in our product, like for example, I was just talking to a customer. She said, I'm not the growth marketer on the team. I'm a product marketer, but I know that our growth marketer is blocked by a content generation problem, and I want to unlock it for him. That's actually not unusual that we're talking to someone adjacent to the function, because they're seeing that their team is somehow blocked. And then we oftentimes convert customers because you can go hands-on with our product and within minutes have something in your hand that shows like, this is going to work. I don't need a brand guideline document. I don't need an IT person. I don't need an engineer. I don't need a designer. So that's been a big piece of what we've been trying to do, is how do we, again, I'm a business person. I've operated inside businesses my whole career. I know how this stuff happens and how these tools are adopted. And so we've been trying to figure out, how do we build something that is adoptable?
That's pretty awesome. I guess one question for you might be, where do you really see this going? Like, if you could just put yourself in your futurist chair and say, my crystal ball indicates to me in 5 years we'll be here with content. What would that say? What would that crystal ball be telling you, Stephanie?
I literally don't know. I got to tell you, I was at an investor conference in January, and anytime the subject of Gen AI and content and this whole stuff came up, people would change the subject. Like the biggest investors, and there were big name investors. I think it's why building right now feels so exciting. I have another friend who is an investor, and he's very much on the agentic AI tip. He's like, your agent's going to talk to my agent. I think that's an interesting point of view, and it's something as we're designing our product where thinking about, or I think that's where that personalization piece comes into play. A lot of the folks that we get on the phone with tons of people every single day. And I think the problem is most people don't even understand the use case enough to understand how this can meaningfully impact their business. And because there isn't enough like actual traction with people who are hands-on content creating marketing in the space, it's hard to predict where we're headed because we haven't seen anything really take off at a sophisticated level.
I've started to really swing back to brand and creative starting to take a strong precedence. And the reason why I believe that's going to happen is because with the automation of so many pieces of the puzzle now, I do see that ability to really, one, dazzle people with a very strong promise, and two, consistently do so in a manner that's authentic and real is going to just be the differentiator. You can come up with as much great content as you want to, but if it's not backed by substance, and we know this, right?
Yeah.
If it's not backed by substance, this is classic USP type of marketing, but if it doesn't have that creative brand, it's just not going to fly as well. And I think we're starting to see that happen already in some instances where companies that are really sticking out are doing so because they're really performing better. They have the product that backs the promise. The promise speaks to people. It's kind of exciting and fun, and it's consistent, so people actually believe it. I don't know. I've deferred to you too.
Garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if you don't understand your customer, if you don't understand who you are and what you stand for, how are you ever going to be doing anything meaningful ever, whether it's AI or yourself?
Yeah, there is that, as you pointed out, that line of thinking that my agent will talk to your agent and there will be no humans involved, and you need toilet paper. You've got toilet paper, but no human had to make the decision as to whether it was Charmin or the one with the stupid bear on it, whatever it is. But
the question, Greg, is it Charmin Blue or Charmin Red?
That is one point of view, and it kind of goes like more broadly into the sort of the whole dead internet theory, right? That it's content by bots for bots, and humans don't need to interact with that content. We'll just get it served to us through an AI and all of this other stuff. But to get down and dirty and practical, at the end of the day, it's humans doing business with humans, right? And when every organization has access to fundamentally the same kinds of technologies to digitize anything that can be digitized, automate anything that can be automated, what's left for the business? It's the stuff that makes the business uniquely human.
Yeah.
And whether that's creativity or empathy or the ability to serve a customer better or create a feeling, an emotion, whatever, that's really what makes the business different. And that's where I think, to Geoff's point, when you think about the future of marketing and you think about how AI might influence it and play out over the course of a number of years, for me too, I guess I'm saying, it's less about, oh great, we'll have this automated wonderland where machines can do all the marketing, but rather, if that's the backdrop, that's also the baseline. And anything that's going to succeed has to rise above that and will require that level of human ingenuity.
I agree. This is why I keep coming back to AI in the loop, right? It's the idea of freeing you up to do more of the stuff that matters, to unleash that creativity. I can't remember, Geoff, it was you and I talking about this, but for agencies, such a giant moment to say, like, your billables are not now 90% like weird, terrible copywriting and revision exercises, but instead the large chunk of it can be around strategy and ideation. That's the dream, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Of
And
course,
Greg always talks about strategy being the room in for agencies. That's the only room to get into the door and stay in the house. If you're just selling content today, it's going to be hard for you because there's going to be so many different people that have different takes on it. I think these tools accelerate that in a way.
Yeah.
It allows people to innovate so much faster and come up with that next big thing that much quicker. Go ahead, Greg, sorry.
But it does mean that agencies have to innovate their model. Not that this is a show about agencies, but I'm sure there's some agency folks listening. And that's been the agency's challenge for years and years and years and years, is that you give the strategy away for free to win the production.
Right.
And now you have to draw that line, and then clients got used to it. So now you have to draw that line in the sand and say, no, you're paying for the strategy. The production maybe is trending towards free. And also have to reimagine their pricing model. Any agency, and it's mostly the big agencies, that are going to see those billable hourlies evaporate. When you don't need a $600 creative director, you need a $60, kid with Midjourney or whatever.
Yeah, prompt
Eventually.
engineer.
Not
Yeah.
today, but eventually that forces agencies to think about value-based pricing, about deliverable-based pricing, right? Or all sorts of other
Or yeah,
things.
I think it's coming. You know, it's interesting. I spend, as part of trying to understand our ideal customer profile, I've really immersed myself in a few different sectors over the past 12 months. And consistently across them is this move towards positioning and pricing around transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about who you are, where you've been, but how I'm going to change things for you. And whether that means whether you're starting a community for this first time, you're a coach, you're a product business, really it's like, you are here and you will be here. This is why you should give me so much money. And I think that AI can only juice that, can only make that better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had a thought while you guys were both talking about the agents thing, and everybody's talking about their little bots going off and talking to each other. I kind of see it more, and forgive me, I know, Greg, you hate these when I do this, but I don't even know if he hates them. I'm just making this up.
You're going to say rag again. I can feel it coming.
No, but I am going to talk about running again.
Go ahead.
All right. So on a long run, I use this watch quite a bit to help me, not just with paces, but I use it to prompt me to feed, like to take salts and all that different kind of thing, and then when to get into intervals and when to turn around. But I pre-programmed this whole thing to basically be my assistant that way. And I see the way this content ecosystem possibly evolving is, if you think about, I know this is terrible, I'm just bridging right into the Copilot thing and hacking somebody else's idea, but it's basically like being in the middle of a cockpit where you have that whole system around you and you can literally have all the different bells and whistles. I really do see this as a human-driven process when it's done right. You just have that many more instruments or services, if you would, to help you get to that optimal state faster, better, and more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean that I agree. Again, like that some of the most interesting applications that I've seen in AI has been in the healthcare space for that. It's basically been like giving doctors and nurses a co-pilot as they do their very basic stuff, because there's a lot of stuff they have to listen to, take notes on, pay attention to. There's no reason that marketers can't leverage that same potential.
Yeah, and Greg, I think we've talked about this with Apple and the way they're approaching AI too, by stringing together different apps and the complex actions, more that personal digital assistant, if you would, that serves the consumer, maybe even fetching that news story or reading it to them in that fake Australian Siri accent as you're driving, whatever it might be, right? But that's kind of like where we need to go.
Yeah.
Not where we're at, but that's kind of the ideal agent experience.
I mean, agents are obviously very early. I think most people who have played around with any agent sees very quickly that it's not yet capable, the technology is generally not capable of what it's promised, but it'll get there, obviously.
It'll get there
quickly.
Faster than we know, yeah.
But it's almost like, kind of flipping it around, there's been so much emphasis on prompting AI. What we're really talking about, which is we have a whole POV on that, but
me too.
and
I see my next question.
But I hear a next question coming. But it's kind of like, forget about prompting AI. How can AI prompt us, right?
Yes.
How can it serve us the piece of information we need right now? How can it recommend a marketing tactic we may not have spotted through all the noise, for example, but that our historical performance tells us might be the right next touch? There's like all sorts of ways that AI could potentially be that true co-pilot.
Yeah.
I don't see, to me, a co-pilot isn't somebody that I'm feeding constant instruction.
No.
Right? I see it the other way around.
It's your chief of staff.
You're not like, you're not my boss. I don't report to you. You're my assistant. You tell me how I can improve my performance.
Stephanie, I think you built the segue to our final question, which is, what's your view on prompting?
Right. So we have all my coworkers, we all are just like very eye rolly around the prompting thing. We always have been. It's exhausting, the typing, all of it. It's like, why? It's disappointing to see how predominant it is in all of the products, all of the AI products. I log into every single one. The first thing I see is a chat. Don't want to chat. Don't want to chat my way into a solution. For us, the thing that we consistently are doing is it's exactly what you said, Greg. One of the first tools we built was insights, because what does a marketer need to do? We need to understand our audiences and what they want, and then make decisions from there. So we have an insights engine, and then we help you understand your key themes. We understand what people are asking about, and then using our RAG implementation, generating on-brand hallucination-free content in response to it. There is not one prompt. There is not one chat bot in our entire product experience. It's about serving you and what you're trying to set out to do.
Greg, what's our view on prompting?
I think we agree. I would agree. I can't speak for Geoff, although I can kind of speak for Geoff. Most people can't tell us apart anyway. But number one, I would say I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think the other thing that's very unfortunate from our perspective is the extent to which the prompt engineering conversation is driving the perception around generative AI, how to use generative AI, what a valuable skill set might be at some point in an AI-driven future.
No.
There is no way, I can't imagine a way that prompting does not go away. Or does go away. It doesn't.
We're in the alpha phase of this whole building process. Yeah.
It's like coding with MS-DOS.
Right.
Come on, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I don't know what I just said or how I messed up my words, but it will go away. Right? Mm-hmm. Either the natural language interaction between you and a machine will become so seamless and so natural that you don't need to sit there and go, whatever, you are a seasoned marketing executive, and give it these ridiculous personas in your prompts and all that kind of dopey stuff that the prompt engineering bros, and it's mostly bros, although it's not all bros. There's some she bros.
I can name a few she bros.
Yeah, there's some she bros. They're out there. If you want to survive and thrive, you've got to become a prompt engineer. It's like, no, that's going to go away. That's already a dying skill set, and we're on day zero.
I have very intentionally I'm a terrible prompter. I share an account with my eng team, and every time I'm like, oh yeah, if you just log into our account as usual, please don't laugh at my bad prompting. But it's by design. I don't need to get good at it because it's going away.
Going away. It also creates this false impression among business people, including business leaders, that if you master the art of the prompt, you're doing AI. When in fact that's the least of your concerns, right? And I think it just sets the wrong tone for the entire conversation about what these technologies can mean for an organization or even an individual, in the case of a lot of the content creators in the creator economy that you work with.
Yeah, Geoff, you mind if I just jump in very quickly, because I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I think being a business leader to really because I've been talking to so many and they're trying to wrap their head around it, and they think oh, I just need to go on ChatGPT and spend 10 hours because that's what people have told them to do. Spend 10 hours on ChatGPT and then you'll get it. That's not what you have to do. What you have to understand, it's understanding the efficiencies and the creative opportunities and the operational opportunities. It's an interesting project because it's a restructuring and a reimagining of the way we work. Nothing to do with me typing into a chat box at all.
Yeah, I love that. And so, folks, you've heard it here first. If you have a rabbit, sell it on eBay before it's completely gone. And if you are a prompt engineer, it's time to upskill really quick, because you're going to be out of work in about 2 or 3 years, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it's all just kidding. Sort of. But, the whole thing about the prompt engineering thing, too, is I feel like this is kind of where the silicon snake oil kind of happens a bit, too, with a lot of the experts really driving their $800 trainings or their $10,000 workshops or their $50,000 let me do a change management program to teach your staff how to interact with ChatGPT or Copilot this year. And
even a $50 subscription something or other, right? It's all of it. It's like they put the
it's a disservice, right?
They put the con in Silicon Valley.
It's honestly it's the usual noise one would expect to see, right? It's we live amongst capitalism. People look for business opportunities.
Let me show you how to tweet.
Yeah, no, it's there's nothing wrong. It's completely understandable, and people have made good money jumping on these little micro opportunities and these moments and understanding when to get in and when when to get out. It's fine. And I know people that are doing well and learning lots in this moment, but I do feel like big picture, it's not where to focus.
I like that repositioning of that conversation. This is zeitgeist. That's the way to do it, my friends. Love that. Okay, any final words before we wrap up, my friends? All right.
So, this is fun. Thank you.
Sweet. Really appreciate having you, Mr. Greg. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Always a pleasure. Stephanie, where can folks find you?
Yes, so visit our website, triastral.com. We just relaunched it. I'm very excited about it. And then find me on LinkedIn. It's the only social media I still do, and I'm very conveniently just at Stephanie Pereira.
Very cool. And folks, if you like this episode, please punch the like button, share it with folks, post it on your social networks, particularly LinkedIn, since we talked about it a ton today. And then on top of that, please do send us feedback if you have it. We do take it. We like to hear what we're doing well and what we need to improve on. And so with that, I think we are out of here.